Hi guys, it's me, Sapphire Opal 5, or you can call me Ali if you like. Today, I am going to be talking about the Reptilian agenda. What are they really here for? Why are they here? And what is it they want with us? There's been a lot of speculation regarding why they are here, and there's a lot of misinformation, to be quite frank, about why they are actually here and everything related to reptilians and such. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a variety of topics, like the differences between reptilians and lizard people, which, by the way, are two very different things, as you will find. I will also be talking about I will touch on to the Garden of Eden topic and the serpent and who they are and what they really were talking about. And then I'm going to also talk about the real reptilian traits. And I will also be talking a little bit more about the structure of the reptilian society. Okay, so just to be clear, these traits listed here are for those that are either incarnated reptilian souls, and often goes in hand with incarnating in a physical body that has at least some reptilian traits. So with this being said, these are the physical traits of people that are incarnated into reptilian human bodies. So people with these traits, they tend to have thicker skin. It kind of almost like looks leathery up close, but it's actually really soft to the touch. And then there's, of course, other traits like widow's peak, green eyes, having an extra spinal bone in the sacral region, which is like it's in the lower back, but it's not the tailbone, if that makes sense. This trait is actually required to be a said shapeshifter, as there are some people who are incarnated reptilians, but they are not necessarily shapeshifters, at least in their incarnated bodies. They also tend to have a higher muscle to fat ratio, and they tend to be more muscular in comparison to people who are the same height, and they may look the same body type wise, but the reptilians are going to have more muscle than the next person that looks like they are the same, but they're not, as body structure wise. So this one is going to be a surprise to many of you, but it is actually a positive blood type. That is the true reptilian blood type. It is not Rh negative blood. Unfortunately, this whole Rh negative, Rh positive thing, so the thing is, Rh negative blood is actually rooted from demons. It's demonic in the sense that demons like blood that is so-called cleaner and has less antigens and sugars and such in it. Whereas Rh positive blood tends to have more sugar, has a different antigen and so-called sugar in their blood that Rh negative blood does not, which is the rhesus factor in there. And mind you, there's a lot of different rhesus factors out there, but this is more so referring to the RHD factor. But that's a whole different topic that I'm not going to be touching on in this video. I didn't make another one if you're interested in watching and getting more clarification as to the science behind blood typing and such. It is actually Rh negative blood that is going to draw the so-called lizard people, not the reptilians, the lizard people who are actually demons posing as reptilians, but I'm going to talk about that in a different segment of this video. Now, when it comes to the personality traits, reptilians that are incarnated tend to have strong personalities. Not all of them are going to be as outrageous or outwardly dominant as other ones, but generally speaking, they do have strong personalities one way or another. So with reptilians, they tend to be dominant, but they're not controlling. So this is kind of goes more in hand with the so-called natural leaders, which a lot of them are, but they are not controlling. Like, they don't care about what you wear or what you do or, stupid things like that you'd see in, controlling relationships and such. They tend to be, of course, unconventional in their thinking and in their lifestyle choices, like, a woman making the first moves kind of deal, and tend to have some so-called magical thinking, as some people would put it, and stuff like that. They tend to be very skeptical and are often said great lie detectors, as they tend to be more big picture oriented. Like, if something doesn't sound logically correct, or they feel like someone is fibbing, they're more likely to suspect that than some other people might. And then, of course, they are caring only if someone deserves to be cared about in their point of view. And then, of course, for those that don't deserve to be cared about, they can be manipulative and such to those people that they feel deserve that kind of treatment. And when it comes to being dishonest, or if they're trying to hide something, like if someone is seen as a so-called enemy, like an incarnated demon, they tend to have a poker face even when lying. So that whole look me in the eye and say that again to prove you're honest, it does not apply to reptilians, because they can still lie looking at you straight in the eye kind of deal. And of course, a lot of them, they tend to have the tough guy, tough woman type of mentality, and they don't believe in necessarily being so-called soft outwardly. This doesn't mean that they're all a-holes or jerks or anything. Well, this just more so is about whether or not, this is just how they don't wear their emotions on their sleeves. It's the best way I can put it. And if you want to put things in a Myers-Briggs perspective, many of them have the ENTP, ENTJ personality types, although there's some that are more introverted and such. But again, that is an entirely different topic. Now, another thing about these reptilian, starseed, alien traits, there are some of them that are BS floating around. Like, some people will say, well, technically having 6 digits is the dominant trait, and that's technically true. And having 5 fingers and 5 digits is generally a recessive trait. However, reptilians and, a lot of them a lot of people in the gene pool, generally speaking, have 5 digits. So having a 6th digit is not a reptilian trait, and it's not an ET trait. It actually originates here on Earth, and I'll talk more about the whole lizard people, reptilian people differences. And then somewhere I read about having webbed feet and even hands. Now, that's not a reptilian trait either. That particular trait actually goes back to a race called Seglons. And they're kind of more amphibious and such. And they come from the constellation Cygnus. I believe it's Psi Cygnus is the specific star system they come from. But again, that's a different topic that I'm not going to be really touching on in this video. But with that being said, it was a Seglon, the Seglon king, who is also the king of Atlantis, named Truvixie. He is the one who introduced that particular trait into the gene pool. But it's not a reptilian trait. So now I want to go ahead and talk about lizard people versus reptilians. Okay, so just to be clear, again, these traits here are for the non-incarnated reptilians as far as being incarnated as a human on Earth's surface. Now, this is where we start to see some inconsistencies in the reports of how reptilians appear to people. So, unfortunately, the terms lizard people and reptilians keeps being used interchangeably as if they are the same thing. They are not the same thing. As you can see here, I pointed out the differences between lizard people versus reptilians. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about where the origins for each comes from. But in short, lizard people are demons posing as reptilians. And they originated actually here on Earth in the Garden of Eden, which again, that's another part of this video. And then the reptilians who come from Alpha Draconis, which is also called Thuban for short, which is in the constellation Draco. David Icke and others did have the identification of the star system correct as far as where reptilians come from. But when it comes to the whole flesh-eating and the government leaders that, are parasites, to be quite frank, if David Icke used lizard people and recognized them as lizard people, but not calling them reptilians, he is spot on. But reptilians are not the ones ruling the government. It's lizard people, and they are actually, like I said, they're demons posing as reptilians, which we're going to talk more about that. So lizard people and reptilians have different traits, but they look similar. The best way to really summarize physical differences is actually going to be seen between the differences between what a venomous snake and a non-venomous snake looks like. And that's where we're going to be talking about the physical traits here. And it's also an area where we start to see some weird variation across contactee reports. And I hope that this comes to help clear up the air some. So, lizard people are really venomous, okay? They're the venomous, think like rattlesnakes and cobras and things like, and snakes like that. So, they tend to have more pointy snouts. Their pupils are elliptical. The belly scales on their stomachs actually run straight in straight bands. They have triangular shaped heads, and then they have heat sensing pits close to the nostrils, which essentially looks like a second nostril, set of nostrils rather. Their tails run only about 5 foot long, and so this means that they will barely touch the ground. And they actually tend to have 6 fingers, not 5. And then they have long claws. And then their eyes are more variable in color. Their eyes are able to be golden orange and, different colors like that. But reptilians, they will only have golden yellow eyes. And again, this also has to do with you looking at their pupils and all their physical traits. Lizard people, their scales will actually look, again, different colors. Some people might talk about bluish or light green, dark green, all kinds of different colors. But reptilians are only like a medium green, have light yellow bellies, and always have a golden yellow color to their eyes. All reptilians look the same, but their heights vary a bit. And now this is where it's going to get a little bit interesting as far as the technology that we see from contactees when they have their encounters and looking at the technology in a room, and also about diets. So the flesh-eating, bloodthirsty monsters that David Icke and some other talk about with these so-called lizard reptilian people, the flesh-eating carnivorous types are actually lizard people or demons posing as reptilians. Okay, and then the blue light technology is actually a lizard people thing. Now, I found this to be interesting when I was talking to the reptilian leader Epona. I go through, my method of collecting this information, by the way, is using a pendulum, and I'm talking to her, and there's other videos I've made talking about how to figure out who is talking to you, and making it so these guides prove they are who they say they are. And I'm also one of the reptilian leaders, which was a little surprising when I found this out, because apparently guides like to call sleep time illusion time, and people do things in their sleep and they don't remember, getting so-called taken to go see aliens and such. It's why they call sleep time illusion time. But that's a different topic of discussion. So reptilians use orange lit technology, but lizard people use blue lit technology. And to put it short, blue lit technology actually is kind of more of a hypervigilance thing, and it's because of the blue light that it actually inhibits the creation of melatonin, which is the so-called sleep hormone. And that is actually a reason why people talk about having yellow light turn on when it is closer to bedtime, so you start getting more sleepy and you're less wired and you're more relaxed and such. A lot of military technology actually has orange light in their technology because it's better for night shift people, and also even for driving, because if you've noticed, when you scroll through Reddit and Facebook and such at night, the blue light actually kind of leaves more of an imprint on your vision, and it kind of burns of certain images on your eyes for a little while afterwards. And that's why if you go to the fridge and you notice the blue light, for a quick drink, and then you end up being half awake, but if it was more warm or orangey, then you would be a little bit more sleepy and more relaxed. So there's actually some articles out there talking about making it so technology tends to be more orange as opposed to blue. Blue looks nicer and more aesthetically attractive, but if you're using it more at nighttime and are exposed to it for too long, it actually promotes the sympathetic nervous system more, which is the whole fight or flight kind of deal and things like that. But orange light technology actually promotes the parasympathetic nervous system, which is more of a relaxation and feel safer kind of deal. Now, I thought that was one of the most interesting things with my conversation with Epona about the differences between lizard people and reptilians. Now, as far as the physical traits, as you can read here, reptilians are more like the non-venomous snakes, and they have rounded snouts, pupils, head shapes are more round, and they don't have a second set of nostrils, which are the heat sensing pits. They only have 5 fingers. Their claws never go past the tips. They are actually vegetarian. They don't eat meat or anything like that. Their belly scales are kind of more like V-shaped, almost like a mosaic-like pattern. And then their scales are more smooth as opposed to rough, unlike the lizard people. Their tails are a lot longer. They're actually more 7 foot long. And they tend to drag because of that, drag on the floor and such. So these are just some of the differences between reptilians and lizard people that I've listed below here. I didn't quite fit all of them in here, but I do hope that my verbal summary has proven to be helpful in identifying the differences between lizard people, who are demons posing as reptilians, and an actual reptilians. Okay, so before I touch on to where reptilians come from versus where lizard people come from and such, I do want to touch on the actual reptilian structure and the structure of reptilian society. So in the last segment of this video, I talked about some of the physical traits of non-incarnated reptilians and such. There are different roles for each reptilians as there would be in any other society. When it comes to height, which I didn't really touch on in the last segment, it actually has to do with status in the reptilian society. So reptilian leaders actually tend to be shorter. And the higher your status is within reptilian society, the shorter you're going to be, which I also thought was very interesting. But again, there's a lot of things we think we know and we actually don't until we find out more. So reptilian leaders tend to be shorter, and their roles are a little bit different as far as what their role here is. They are obviously here to be more leaders and are more outspoken, and their roles are not so much in fighting, but it's kind of more, like, hey, this is what we're here for, and, directing other reptilians and such. So really, as far as who is incarnated here, most reptilian leaders are not incarnated here. I found out I myself am a reptilian leader, which was a surprise in a way to me, but not real. But I kind of felt like I might be. So there are no reptilian healers incarnated here on Earth, and there are no reptilian civilians incarnated here either. A vast majority of the reptilians who are incarnated here on Earth, and really who are here on Earth itself, are actually going to be reptilian fighters. So this is where I talk about the reptilian agenda. And the reptilian agenda is rather simple. Okay, so about 65 million years ago, as Joe Montaldo was talking about, something made the reptilians jump ship, because this was their world and it was taken by Satan, who was once a fae, and he betrayed his own kind, and this is where he created demons, which is the so-called Garden of Eden. That's where it all happened in many phases, but that's not for this segment of the video. This is going to be for a different part. Reptilians came back actually when the atomic bombs struck Earth's surface in Japan during World War II. So this ties into things like the Mayan calendar ending in 2012 or whatever, and then the Hopi prophecy and things like that. So when the atomic bombs struck Japan during World War II, the sheer power of the atomic bombs hitting Japan was so strong that it sent that the former conscious of this planet, Gaia, sent a signal to other worlds with intelligent life on it, talking about so-called needing help and such. The reptilians, when they left Earth about 65 million years ago, this was because a lot of the dinosaurs that were here and were created and such were they couldn't stop eating each other, and the reptilians kind of were looking at each other like, okay, I think it's time for us to bounce now. So that is why the reptilians left. It's because the dinosaurs would not stop eating each other, because many dinosaurs, the carnivores namely, like T-Rexes and such, are demonic. We're demonic. And that is in part what led to the demise of dinosaurs to begin with. So reptilians really are here because many stars, all starseeds really, are considered to be good souls. And the good souls here are really incarnations from other worlds. Like, we have Fae, we have deities, we have reptilians, we have Seglons, we have a variety of races and so-called humans that come from a variety of star systems. So the fighters, their job is to hunt demons and such, so that pretty much we're not here to save Earth as the Starseed agenda. It's actually to kind of do our thing and then leave, because Gaia said that distress signal, and it was a fake distress signal, because Gaia knew the moment the atomic bombs struck Earth's surface, she knew who was going to become the said conscience of this planet. It was either going to be the soul that incarnated as Christ or Hades. And the Mayan 2012 calendar ending was not necessarily the end of the world, but the end of a cycle, which is true in a sense. But what it really means is that Hades became the conscience of this planet, not the soul that was incarnated as Christ. The reptilians are here to hunt demons and to kill them so that their population dwindles enough to stop trying to trap incarnated Fae, incarnated deities, and other souls that pretty much fell for the fake distress signal. Now, reptilian seers. Now, there's not too many of them here, but there are some who are here. The seers are much more the type that are the ones that get the message first. That's pretty much with any kind of seer. The seers are the ones who get divine messages first, and are the first to get things like visions and auditory messages and such from other seers, and getting messages about what in the divine blueprints and what's likely going to happen as far as which version of divine blueprints occur. So the seers are the ones that kind of get messages first and talk to the leaders about the messages they're getting, and then the leaders and such will talk about these divine messages and such, and kind of determine a strategy based on that. And the seers are also pretty good about picking up on who the enemies are and who is not an enemy. Kind of like, the more psychic ones, if that makes sense. And of course, the healers, the name says it in itself. They are like the doctors, the ones that heal the wounded and things like that. And it's actually the healers that people often encounter when they are getting said medical procedures done in their encounters with reptilians. Like the good kinds that are not hostile, they're more friendly and helpful and such. You're not going to really see any civilians, even in the reptilian labs, not on the Earth's surface. There's a few seers that are here, but not too many, and there are a few incarnated as well. And the vast majority of those that are incarnated here are the fighters that are here to literally hunt down demons. And if you are an incarnated demon and you are in the clutches of a reptilian, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're not going to walk away. Okay? Got to point that out. So the Reptilian agenda is pretty simple. Like I said, they're here to hunt demons and make their populations dwindle enough so that good souls can leave this planet without being restrained or held back after they are done doing their business here on this planet. So now going back to this diagram with the Nordic realms, as you can see, Midgard, Earth's soul, and the solar system. Earth is called Gaia a lot, for the equivalent of the Roman deity Terra, and really the Greek deity of the earth. So therefore Earth is Gaia, which is Midgard. But then you kind of go ascend up the tree and you see Asgard, which is actually Maya, which is in the Pleiades, which is the said home of the Seer gods. So it's kind of an interesting coincidence that the name that was selected for Earth, where we reside now, is Gaia, and then Asgard, when you ascend up the tree of life, is Maya and the Pleiades. So I thought that tidbit of information was very interesting when I was doing some research on what Epona and I were talking about. And I thought that I would share this information with you so you can kind of connect the dots and see the connection here. Another thing I do want to touch on with regards to soul destination and such after we die in the vessels in this body. So this ties in with the Reptilian agenda because the Reptilians are hunting down demons who were never meant to exist to begin with, as demons are parasitic, bloodthirsty creatures that only fend for themselves and really just don't have a real place in existence. Now, evil does have to exist, but it needs to exist in a very small corner. And unfortunately, Earth cannot be that world because Earth is so heavily polluted that Earth just can't be a suitable choice for this. With this being said, I had a recent conversation with a stranger on Reddit. I will not name their screen name because I'm sure they wouldn't appreciate that, but we were having a private conversation about what I've learned in divination and things like that. With regards to hell, which is similar to Helheim in Nordic cosmology, I found out some interesting things about hell itself after we die and such. You know, people say that, you know, it's for the dishonorable dead and people who don't die in war and things like that. Well, I did find out that from this person that when I mentioned Hela telling me that souls do get restructured, and, you know, she's more of a therapist when she's restructuring souls and helping them heal from the damage done by incarnations on Earth and things like that, and maybe some things that they have done or things that were done to them, and they just need some help getting over it so that they can continue incarnating in a healthy fashion and not have to keep doing the same things over and over again to try to learn the same lessons or get over what happened and balance out what happened in one lifetime and the next one type of deal. Everything I was telling this person that Hela has told me about restructuring, and I do remember helping my higher self, helping one soul become restructured, and I remember seeing a nursery, and it was like really colorful in this room, and it was like, it's like what you would see in a lot of babies' rooms, like for nurseries and such. And as I was telling this person this, they did tell me about a book author named Michael Newton, who I believe has now passed away. And they were mentioning about some elders on a council that determined where you would go and things like that. And then also mentioned this restructuring, and someone even mentioning a nursery to him, and mentioning these places that people go to restructure and such between lifetimes. So I thought that was really interesting that Michael Newton, and all of his research in doing hypnotherapy on thousands of patients, and it's the same thing I've learned through my divination. A lot of, pretty much everything I've learned in this, that I presented in this video, was done through divination work. And it's very interesting to see that what I have learned in my divination has been said by other people using different methodologies and such, as this person said. So I found that tidbit fascinating and thought that I would share how I got a lot of this information, and also what actually happens to souls when they're restructured and things like that, or not restructured. Now, this relates to the reptilian agenda, because demons that do not redeem themselves actually do go to Helheim, but Helheim is not just going to Hela, you see. It could also be going into the pits of hell. And now this is the place where people talk about burning and all this and that, but what actually really happens in those pits is not just torture until you die. It's like, getting hit while you're being hooked up on chains and such. It's worse than that. It's actually being hunted by demons and being eaten alive. And then your body gets burned after you die, feeling every bite and everything. It's pretty horrifying what happens in the pits of hell. Okay, so on to undoubtedly the most controversial topic of this video. The Garden of Eden. What on earth is really the Garden of Eden? Where was it really? And who on earth was the serpent? Okay, a lot of you are probably going to get angry about this. I'm going to get ready for the pitchforks and the torches coming my way because they don't like what I have to say, but this is what it is. So, Garden of Eden. What is it? The Garden of Eden is actually the location where demons and humans were first created here on Earth. And this is actually said to be in the northeast region of Africa. Okay, so we think like Egypt and Ethiopia. It's kind of close to that area, but not quite. So the northeast side of Africa is where humans and demons were first created. So creation happened here in actually many phases. You think about the dinosaurs, you think about many prehistoric phases and eras and such, as far as what kind of animal species exist on Earth. And really the creation that happened in the Garden of Eden here on Earth was really a perversion of true divine creation, because demons should not have been created to begin with, because they're parasitic, they are carnivorous, and they believe that, people should live in fear. They believe that in taking from others just to sustain themselves and survival of the fittest, and it's all demonic bull crap, okay? This is not how it is on other worlds. It is just like that on Earth now. So, creation happened in the Garden of Eden in many phases. Evolution also happened in many phases so that all the life forms that were made could adapt to Earth's many different regions. Because obviously there's a difference between being closer to the North Pole, South Pole, and being closer to the equator. And then there's also a difference between being high in the mountains where the air is thinner and being at the beach closer to sea level, where you got more salt in the air and iodine and stuff in the air. And then, who on earth is the serpent? So the serpent in the Bible refers to the reptilian leader Epona, who appeared to Adam and Eve to tell them that they are naked and not dressed because their essence is savage and not civilized. Now, this is the part where I tell you about 99% of the world's population are actually demons in human bodies. Now, before you get defensive and get angry about me accusing you of being demonic, now, when you put it into perspective what the numbers really mean, it's actually more non-demonic people than you think. So it's like there's currently over 7 billion people on the Earth's surface, and then 99% of them about are demonic, and then we've got people that are other races that incarnated here, like reptilians, we got the Fae, we got deities even that are incarnated, we got Seglons, we got the Greys, we got other races that are incarnated here in human bodies on Earth's surface, walking amongst us. So Epona, she encouraged Adam and Eve to eat from the tree of knowledge so they could see the errors of their ways and have a shot at redemption. Okay, so this is the part where I also tell you that there are some humans, some demons that are actually able to be redeemed. So the reason why God got angry, and this is a whole different topic as to who God really is. You know, people say like his name is Yahweh, his name is this, his name is that, and well, to say who God is, I'm not going to really touch on that too much right now. It's a whole different topic, but it's not something that's going to be pleasant for most people to hear. God got angry at Adam and Eve for eating from the tree of knowledge, because this means that if any incarnated demons, and demons generally speaking, end up redeeming themselves and the God of all worlds outside of Earth, that means that their souls are able to leave. And the God of this world does not want any souls to leave, period, for this would signify the end of his reign. Okay, so this is the part where I go back to the conscience of this planet. So the said God of this world kind of runs the government, so to speak. You know, the whole said flesh eaters, the whole people that are bloodthirsty and bloodsuckers and screwing over the small man kind of deal, just trying to make their way through kind of deal, and all that stuff. Those are demonic leaders that are the politicians of this world and the so-called world's elite. It is not the reptilians, it's the so-called lizard people or demons that are posing as reptilians. The conscience of this planet is, however, a very different thing from God. When people talk about God versus Mother Earth, that's kind of the same, that's kind of the difference, really. So when it comes to like the Mayan calendar supposedly ending in 2012, people are talking about the end of a cycle. And then they also talk about the Hopi prophecy where, you know, if people don't start changing the errors of their ways, you know, it could either mean the survival of Earth, assuming that, you know, Earth will survive and God of this planet will continue his reign and whatever. And then the destruction of this world. And we're talking about the Hopi prophecy here, the red versus blue Katina and whatever. So here is where we talk about the consciousness of this planet. So in 2012, we were talking about the Mayan calendar, which apparently ended in 2012. And the Hopi prophecy, it all ties in together here. The survival of this planet would have been if Christ, the soul that incarnated as Christ, became the conscience of this planet. like, you know, the whole everyone's redeemed, all souls and beings are divine and in touch with their higher selves completely, and things like that. And where everyone speaks one language, like the Hopi talked about, and the world is one unified place. That is assuming the survival of Earth. But the problem herein lies where who became the conscience of this planet. The shift of the conscience of this planet happened actually a little bit before 2012 struck the calendar. This was the pivotal point where Gaia left this planet, is no longer the conscience of this planet, and it became either the soul that incarnated as Christ or the soul known as Hades. I can give you a big hint here. It was not the soul that incarnated as Christ who became the conscience of this planet. And that explains why we have things like the atomic bombs striking Earth's surface. We have things like the knowledge knowing that it would take about 10,000 years for Earth to heal from the damage done by humans in a matter of less than 300 years thanks to the Industrial Revolution. And it also ties into Judgment Day, where, you know, the whole world catches on fire, blah, blah, blah. Judgment Day, with the whole world catching on fire and stuff, that's the destruction of Earth. And unfortunately, I'm not allowed to reveal here when Judgment Day is supposed to happen. I did get a number of years, however. And I will definitely say that, unfortunately, Earth has already hit the point of destruction, not survival. Okay, now, with this being said, you know, just the Garden of Eden is where humans and demons were first created. And it is demons and said humans that are demons incarnated are native to this planet, but there are souls that are actually other races, and it's a little bit more than you would think. And by the way, the 144,000 souls that are starseeds, only that's a fake number. There's a lot more than that, even if most of them will never really know it. Now, for a different topic, I also do want to touch on okay, so the other topic I want to touch on here is the relationship between the words Gaia and Maya. Okay, so people have been talking about Gaia, like the series or the show or the channel, whatever you want to call it, and they refer to Gaia as the planet Earth itself. So in Greek mythology, Gaia is the Greek goddess of the earth itself, and the Roman equivalent is Terra, in Hinduism Bhumi, and then in the Hopi tradition, the equivalent is Spider-Woman. And Gaia was created after chaos in Greek mythology, alongside arrows and such, which is little curious. What is this so-called chaos? It's Garden of Eden, because Gaia is one of actually Satan's children, but that's a whole different ball game. Because a lot of who people think is Gaia when they say they're worshiping Gaia is actually Pleione, who is the mother of the Pleiades, but that is again another topic of discussion here. So Gaia birthed the Titans with her son Uranus, the creepy incest that's prevalent in some mythology here. Earth has, curiously, 4 seasons. We have summer solstice, we got fall equinox, winter solstice, and then spring. So the word solstice in itself is actually very interesting, and it hints at the said soul sister of Maya, which is where a lot of star seeds come from. So the Latin origin for solstice comes from the words sol, which means sun, the name of the solar system, and then stilt, which is actually meaning stationary, from the verb sister. And when the person came up with the word solstice, they weren't really aware of this, but they were basically being talked to as this is kind of a hint to them, and no one really knew it at the time, hinting at the said soul sister of the Greek Pleiade Maya, the star system where most Pleiadian star seeds incarnated here on Earth come from. Actually, it's a planet with the lavender purple sky and 3 moons and stuff like that a lot of people talk about. And then the origin for equinox is not as interesting, but I thought I would mention it here nonetheless. So equi, which means equal, and then nox, meaning night. So I decided to ask what the significance is of the seasons when I got this interesting tidbit of information when I was looking up the word solstice in itself. So when the Garden of Eden came about first, you could probably, there's a reason why, you know, like, love seems to be more in the air in the summer. That's because more so the origin and the start of creation here on Earth and demons and such, it was considered to be more summer. And then when life started to become a little bit more civilized, here was the fall. And then now we are experiencing winter, which is kind of like the death or sleeping of life. I would say more sort of death, because we're seeing a lot more pollution, we're seeing a lot more dullness in the world, we're seeing more life being destroyed, like we're seeing mass extinctions in record numbers, we're seeing a lot more death, generally speaking, and, well, like I said earlier, this is kind of more like the destruction of Earth, period. But good souls and any demons that have successfully redeemed themselves in the eyes of the God of all other worlds will be going on to other worlds after this last lifetime of theirs. So now I'm going to hop back here to Nordic cosmic realm so you can kind of see the relationship and why the relationship of Gaia and Maya is relevant just in terms of Nordic cosmology. So this wraps up the disclosure for the Reptilian agenda. I hope you found this video very informative as far as why the Reptilians are here, clearing the air on why there's a big discrepancy between contactee reports as far as what the Reptilians look like, how they behave, what the technology colors look like regarding blue versus orange light, and things like that. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it informative, and I hope that you subscribe, or better yet, maybe I hear more from researchers. Again, thank you for watching this video. I hope you have a good one. Thank you. Bye.